And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to my 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix post-race Chinwag. Let's get into it. And you know what? Valkenburg, I see your messages in the live chat. We're going to start with some Minton. We're going to actually start with some fun now because I forgot to close it. We're going to start with some Minton. Look at him. Here he is. The sausage dog on my shoulder. As per, he's been a kip, obviously, and he will return to sleep fairly shortly. But this is my sausage dog, Minton. He likes to balance on my shoulder. Although when he's tired, he kind of just doesn't really... Are you going to balance? Yeah, kind of. No hands. Usually he's a bit more composed than this, but I think you're a bit sleepy, ain't you, fella? But yeah, we're going to start with some Minton. All right, sometimes I like to get Minton out and play an ad to monetize this sausage dog, but not today. Maybe later, or maybe I'll put him down, maybe I'll go get him again. But thank you for joining me today, everybody. I'm going to put this one back to his little bed, so say bye-bye to your adoring fans. Apologies to any audio-only listeners. You can't see my glorious sausage dog. That sounds like a you problem. I'm joking, of course. Well, I mean, look, you can't see him if you're going to listen audio-only, but... That's just, sometimes that's the way it's got to go. Hello, David, Halita, Dan, Charmander, Paul, username Poppy, Sophia, Patrick, Kleiner, Joseph, Seamus, Rosalie, Marius, Minifos, Zenith, Christopher, Sem, Egon, Ruben, Ray, Peter, Nilsson, Bailey, Carlos, Vulcan, Danny, Pablo, Max, Olivia, Lolly, Priest, Music, Desktop, Pogon, Frederick, Drew, and Matt and Matthew. Welcome to both of you. Right. 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix, not the Brazilian Grand Prix, as we kept getting reminded by Ted this weekend. Let's start straight into it. Race rating out of 10. Give me some numbers, live chat. I've got my own race rating. I'll show you mine shortly. I want to get an idea of yours first and foremost. David's gone straight with a 9. A 9. Oh my God. What the... No. These numbers I'm seeing right now. Really, chat? Really? Okay. Wow. I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. Right, I'm going to do a poll to get an idea, but I'm seeing a lot of 6s and 7s and 8s. 5, so I'm going 5, I guess, on the lower end, 5 or lower. 6, 7, or 8 or higher. Look, I'm just going with you, chat, right? You're here live. If you're here on YouTube, welcome. Thank you for coming. Race rating out of 10. I've gone 5 or lower, 6, 7, or 8 or higher. Okay, so, wow. These numbers are jumping around quite a bit. So, Saturday, sprint. You know what? A sprint's go. It was very good, I thought. Very good. But specifically right now, I'm talking about the actual Grand Prix on Sunday. And we've got 14% 5 or lower. 28% 6, 33% 7, 25% 8 or higher. This is like the biggest spread I think we've had. This is the biggest spread we have. I'm not sick, Aleph. I'm good. I'm just, I don't know. Just sometimes I sound a bit different, I guess. I mean, I'm specifically talking about the race here. Bear in mind, right? 5 or lower is at about 13, 14%. 6 is about 27%. 7 is 35%. 8 or higher is 24%. Look, I mean, I'm somewhat shocked. Again, audio only. Don't forget to check it out. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that. I mean, you're averaging out about a 6.5, I'd say. Live chat. It's a 4. I was half tempted to give this a 3. I've given it a 4 out of 10 this race. That race, apart from the end, was a stinker. Are you crazy? Chat, are you mad? Are you mad? I'm sorry, please justify, outside of the Checo-Alonso battle, how that is anything more than a 5 out of 10 absolute maximum. Come on, chat, give me some reasoning. We had a real battle for the lead. Okay, a little scrap for Lando and Max for like once. The formulation lap was great. Gasly was passing the Mercedes in the straights. He wasn't even doing it in the braking zone because the Mercedes were nowhere. Nah, come on. You lot are too generous, man. You lot are far too generous. I'm sorry. This ain't a charity, right? This sport ain't a charity. I love Interlagos, but that race was a howler. Up until those penultimate laps, this man right here, Fernando Alonso, saved that race from an easy 3 out of 10 for me. Shocker. Absolute stinker. Stinky race, that was. Stinky race. Nothing exciting except the ending. I mean, wasn't really. Again, Lando and Max had their little scrap, but that lasted like once. And then Max just kind of gapped him. I don't know. I mean, again, Ricciardo had pace. If he'd have been up there, it could have been a bit more interesting. Leclerc, if he hadn't have had his car break at the start, that could have been a bit more interesting. Yeah, man. Fernando saved that race. No L1 equals stinker. To be fair, and also actually, on the last lap, my live reaction to Alex crashing out was like, he's not going to get points anyway, so... The start was chaotic. There was just a big crash at the start. And we basically lost Magnussen, Albon, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Piastri. We basically lost all of them like within, one corner. So, TV direction once again was a bit awful. Yeah, look, for me, I'm sorry. I'm not being convinced. I'm not seeing a compelling argument otherwise in the chat to why this is anything more than a 4 out of 10 for me. Sorry. Call it bias all you like. I was bored for most of it. What can I say? Anyway, that is my rating for the 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. The sprint was way better than the race. Okay, the end was great. That's why I got a 4, not a 3. The end was great. But again, thanks to that man. The sprint was definitely better. Definitely. They've re-overtaken, all that. Quality. Loved it. Somehow if Albon scored a point, it would have been an 8 out of 10. Well, obviously, David, of course it would have been an 8 out of 10 because Alex would have made it the most entertaining race. Okay, I'm purely objective always. Thank you, Pit Lane Pulse, for the 200 KES, far below average for Brazil, saved by Sigma Alonso. Spot on. Anyway, this is how the 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix finished. Max Verstappen won ahead of Lando Norris with fastest lap, 19 points for Lando, and Fernando Alonso by 53 thousandths of a second pipped Sergio Perez at the line. Fernando, man. This guy, honestly. This guy. What a performance from Fernando. Checo, P4. Not quite on the day. Lance Stroll, P5. P5 in the end. Was about 10 seconds off Fernando by the end. But a decent shift in Lance. Decent shift. Good points for both Aston Martins as well. So that car... Look, I'm as shocked as you are, right? I'm wearing green for a reason today. I'm as shocked as you lot are. I remember pre-race, you put Aston Martin as clanger team. What can I say? Came out of nowhere. No one saw that one coming. Sainz P6, Gasly P7. Great drive from Pierre. Really good drive from Pierre. Lewis P8, Yuki P9. Ocon just holds on for another 1 point, 2 races. 2 main races in a row now. Give him the Red Bull seat. Yeah, give Gasly the Red Bull seat. Give Gasly the Red Bulls. Sargent just outside the points. We had 6 non-finishers. Russell, Bottas, Joe, Magnussen, Albon, Leclerc, Ricciardo and Piastri were pretty much a lap down because they kind of got stiff, didn't they? Felt for Ricciardo and Piastri, particularly Ricciardo, because he had a lot of pace. He had a lot of pace in clean air. Piastri, there was a bit of damage McLaren couldn't fix, so it would have been hard for him to make real inroads in the race, especially compared to Lando. But yeah, and all those DNFs and still no Haas points and still no Sargent points. Bit of an L. I'll put Hamilton for the win. You know what, Edwards? That is correct. I did put Hamilton for the win. We both took the L. Okay, I was hoping you'd forget that, but thank you for calling me out, Edward. That's what. Sometimes I just need humbling. Right? This is important. Okay, this is important. Sometimes I'm not always right. That many Lomo moments occur. Okay, it's. I don't know about rare, David. I don't know about rare. But there you go. There you go. There you go. That's how things finished. So this is how the driver standings look now. In terms of movement, Alonso moves ahead of Sainz. They were level on points. Fernando is now ahead. Sainz had the better sprint. Alonso had the better race. So Alonso 198, Sainz 195, Norris 192. He's only 6 points behind P4 is Lando. It's looking good. It's looking good. That momentum from Lando Norris is looking good. Since Austria, he's scored 183 of his 195 points. Since Austria. 7 P2s when you include sprints. 2 P3s when you include sprints. Matt. Sainz and Norris is swapped. Is it? Sainz and Norris is swapped? What? Wait. No. No, really? Oh my God, Lando is 5th. Okay, there's another. Look. Okay. Listen, right? What you guys don't know is that I have no excuse. And so I'm just going to quickly change that. So Lando is actually 3 points behind Carlos Sainz. Don't mind me. I'm just gonna. No, he's 3 points ahead of Carlos Sainz. Sometimes I'm just like, what? Why do I have an audience? So, Lando is just 3 points behind Fernando Alonso and 3 points ahead of Carlos Sainz. I can't believe it. It's so crazy how that happened. I'm shook. I'm shook. I can't tell you how shook I am. See, look, the graphic's correct. It's always been correct. It's never been incorrect. Because of Minton, that's, McFillan, that's a very fair point. That's a very, very fair point. Lewis is catchable, do you reckon? Lewis was a pretty solid P2, wasn't he, last race in Mexico? So, I don't know. I think that's a bit of a stretch given, it was a bad performance by Mercedes and both Lewis and George ultimately. But, one DNF can do it. I mean, there's 2 to go. There's 2 to go. No commotion, Lawrence. No commotion, mate. It's all good. But I think P2's done now. Even if Lewis has 2 strong last races, Checo just has to pick up a few points here and there to get that done. So I think Checo's just about hung on to P2. And that's how things are looking. Otherwise, in terms of movement, Sonoda's jumped up a bunch of places. 13 points on the board for Yuki now. And thank you, Rohit, for the 20 rupees. I definitely don't deserve them. And Gasly, big jump as well, points-wise. Although Stroll moves ahead of him, he's only 1 point behind Stroll. So surely Norris for 3rd now. I don't think Norris will get 3rd. I'm pretty certain he'll get 4th. Even if this pace is legit from Aston Martin, that they've somewhat unlocked something in this car. I don't know. Vegas is a very different beast. And again, McLaren have been consistently fast everywhere since the upgrade came, particularly obviously onto Lando's car. Never finished lower than 8th. Again, 9 times on the podium when you include sprints as well. That's a lot of damage. That is a lot of damage. Constructors-wise, the gap AlphaTauri to Williams closes now to 7. To 7. I know when I suggested AlphaTauri, most likely to catch Williams in my video a couple of weeks back, some of you called me crazy. No, they can never possibly catch it. It's only 7 points. And look at the pace Ricciardo had, the pace Tsunoda had, and Yuki made a couple of mistakes in the race. That Williams, they need to clean up in Vegas, otherwise they're in big trouble for P7. They are in big trouble. That's a very good point about Mercedes, David. They don't understand why they were so quick in Brazil last year and why they were so slow in Brazil this year. That does not bode well. My video this week will be about Mercedes' downfall because, this is not an isolated incident as much as, Lewis being P3 and the drivers looks good. For a team like Mercedes, this is not the one. This is not the one. But yes, in terms of constructors, 20 points between Ferrari and Mercedes, that is surmountable for sure. Even though Ferrari, if McLaren were in Ferrari's place, for sure McLaren are getting second. But, they've got a 80-point deficit to Ferrari. 100-point deficit to Mercedes, man. That's like, come on. That's a bit much for 2 races. That is a bit much. But otherwise, not too much movement. Look, maybe Aston Martin catch McLaren. Maybe they've turned it around, right? Maybe they've turned it around. This is the first race I can recall Mercedes was so slow. I'm not sure about that. I think there's, I think it's been set up on a knife edge stuff. Mercedes in sprints have stunk. George and Lewis are 6th and 7th in the Drivers' Championship, respectively, when it comes to sprints, versus, they're 3rd and 8th. So, Russell's just, equally poor. If anything, Russell's done better in the sprints than he has in the races, relative anyway. But there you go. There you go. So, 400 points. 400 points, Red Bull are clear. 400 points. 400 points. Crazy stuff. Genuine question, why is Gunther still at Haas? Otmar to Haas would be a vibe. I'm not going to lie. Otmar to Haas would actually be a vibe. Anyway, right, cool. Bangers and clangers. Bangingest weekend, clangingest weekend. Again, I think sometimes I forget to mention this. I'm trying to consider the full weekend. In the poll, it does stipulate weekend bangers and clangers. So obviously with a sprint, you've got a lot more to look at. Starting with banging drive. Who had the bangingest drive from the 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix? Obviously, Alonso's going to be up there. Gasly, Norris. Another great race from him. Only 8 seconds or so behind Max in the end. With no, safety cars to slow him down. Obviously, yes, they lost a few laps to red flag at the start, whatever. Max pole to win in the end. Obviously, somewhat maybe helped by Leclerc not starting because he would have been P2. But Max couldn't have really done much more. Stroll as well followed Alonso round in the sprint and followed Alonso round mostly in the race. It was a 10-second gap in the end, but he did well. There's a few names, but it's got to be Fernando Alonso for me. I mean, I remember in the sprint was great, right? And I remember, in the sprint, I was just like, yeah, Fernando had a really good race. He had a really good sprint. Qualifying, Aston Martin, played a bit of a blinder, putting the cars out when they did to get him P3, P4. Bad starts for both Aston Martins. Bad start from both Aston Martins. So that's the only downgrade you can give to Fernando. But would he have finished ahead of Norris anyway? No. With a better start, could he have been a bit more comfortable to Perez? Sure. But then also, Fernando having the bad start, the butterfly effect of that gave us one of the most entertaining finishes to a race for a very long time in terms of the fight for the podium. So actually, Fernando having a bit of a mid start he actually played a blinder. So For me, Fernando Alonso, that he did kind of school Perez, didn't he? Because like Perez was trying to make that move for ages. Then he eventually got it done. But you always felt, because Fernando had a lot of battery and capacity, you know. I know on the radio, his race engineer was telling him like you've got plenty of battery to get the move redone. So it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if Fernando was at least prepared for Checo to pass him. You know, doing what he can to conserve as much ERS as he can to then get the move done back, and then on the line. Obviously, that Red Bull with the DRS as well is an absolute weapon. The difference in speed was crazy. 53 thousandths of a second. Giving Max banger drive is like giving a millionaire a tenner. Max has to win by like 40 seconds to get a banger drive. I'm sorry, Max. You've set the standards far too high. Far too high. Verstappen winning 17 of 20 races, he's only received 3 driver of the days. Yeah, well, look, he's suffering from success. This happens. Whenever anyone dominates, the focus moves away from them. That's just the reality of any sport, you know? And people pray for the downfall. The general fan base will pray for the downfall. Be that Lewis, be that Max, be that Vettel, be that Schumacher, whoever. It's just the way sport is. Be that the Chicago Bulls, be that Manchester United, be that, you know, the Patriots, whatever. It don't matter. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. No, I don't really think he cares about the drive of the day either. So that's my banger drive of the weekend. Fernando Alonso. As for you, 1,762 of you voted for your bangers and clangers for the 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And your banger drive, shock, it was Fernando Alonso. 65% of the vote, 13% Lando, 10% Yuki, 3% Gasly. Tsunoda had a very good sprint, sure. In the race, he made a couple of little errors. I think Gasly 3% is harsh. If I hadn't given it to Fernando, I probably would have given it to Pierre, to be honest. Stroll didn't make the top 4. Look, I respect the Yuki prop. I wouldn't have put him in my top 4, but he did have a very good race. But also, clearly, that AlphaTauri is now a different beast to what it once was. Considering the laps Daniel was putting in, he was lapping kind of top 5 pace in clean air, of course. But sorry, no acknowledgement for Stroll. I mean, he's still 10 seconds behind his teammate, but then his teammate's Fernando Alonso. So then it's like, but then Stroll didn't make any errors. Yuki did make, or at least one error that I saw. I think maybe he made another as well. But yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due. You've got to give credit where credit is due. Well, yeah, not Man United anymore, obviously, Elminga. But it was 6-6, was it? Oh, it was 10, but then I think obviously where Fernando and Checo were having their little scrap, I think Lance did close it down a bit, didn't he? But yeah, maybe it was 6 seconds for him. So, yeah, you've given it to Fernando. No surprise there. But then Clanger Drive. Clanger Drive for me, it's difficult, right? Again, I'm looking at the full weekend. I'm looking at your gap relative to your teammate as well. And I'm looking for mistakes. And there's one driver to me who kind of stood out more than the rest. And it's not actually the same as what you guys have gone for. Spoiler alert. I've gone with Ocon. So he didn't get the car set up correct. He was munching for his tyres. He had to do a 3-stop in the race. Gasly was P7. He was P10. He and the team on his side of the garage didn't get the setup right compared to Gasly's side of the garage. He also did cause that accident with Fernando in qualifying, as much as he likes to claim that he didn't lose control. Like, I think what he's trying to say is that if Fernando wasn't there, it's not like he would have gone into the barrier. And I think that's true. He would have just run wide. And Fernando being there meant that he couldn't run wide. And he, in his mind, he's like, I should be able to run wide on my lap and not hit someone. But, like, come on, Esteban. That he was, like, clutching at straws. I think he really was clutching at straws at that one. I mean, look, I don't get too much on him for blaming him in the moment. blaming Fernando in the moment, right? Because you're in the car, adrenaline's high, right? Ocon blaming Fernando in that moment. I'm not going to criticise him too much for that. It's more the doubling down afterwards and being, no, like, it was Fernando's fault. Like, come on. We've all got the receipts. I didn't lose the car. Well, you were somewhat out of control of that car. If you were fully in control of that car, you wouldn't have gone as wide as you did. And yes, Fernando could have given more space. And Fernando turning left down doesn't look great. Again, he's assuming that Ocon's going to shoot past and then he can turn in behind Esteban. Obviously, Hamilton was on a quick lap behind Ocon as well. And Fernando could, in hindsight, should have given a bit more leeway and room on a corner like that that's full throttle. Ocon didn't lose it massively. It's not like he spun. Like he had a correction and then ran a bit wide. And then, Fernando was there, right? And arguably you think, well, but then you're going to get that all the time. I mean, Sargent was literally talking about that post-race. Like, he was like, no one's giving me space. So I'm sure there could have been, if Sargent had had a bit of a tank slapper, he probably would have hit someone as well. So, wrong place, wrong time. It was a convergence of just bad luck. But ultimately, it's on Ocon. He had a stinker race relative to Pierre. Yeah, you know what? Like, by like mid-season, they were pretty... But Ocon's been a bit stinky, actually. And I've got a lot of time for Ocon. I like him. But he's actually been a bit stinky these last few races. And, it's not looking too good, Brev. I mean, Pierre's definitely got the upper hand. Absolutely. Right now, for sure. No doubt. Ocon runs hot and cold very often. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. He's not a consistent enough driver to really be considered right up there, unfortunately. I think on his day, look at Monaco earlier this year, stonking drive around arguably the most challenging track in F1, but he's not at the races often enough, Esteban. Sad to say. I'd say the same about Yuki as well, to be honest. That they're two of my favourite drivers, but they just lack consistency that top drivers really establish. And you look at how, consistent the likes of Verstappen and Alonso and a lot of these drivers are. Like, no, it's a shame. It's a shame. So that's my clanger. I've given it to Ocon. You've given it to George Russell. 32% of the vote. 17% Hamilton. 12% Leclerc. 10% Magnussen. George, it's a bit harsh on George, perhaps. I mean, obviously in the sprint, he did a better job than Lewis. He held onto the tyres more and he finished quite considerably higher. In the race, obviously, it was a difficult situation, right? George felt he was faster than Lewis, but also he seems quite, intent on playing the team game, but then Mercedes didn't really know what game they wanted to play. Ocon's not even in the top 4, which was actually a bit mad to me, but there you go. I don't know. I think obviously George had to retire in the end. I think it was a oil pressure thing, I think, or like high temperature oil or something. So they retired the car before it broke, basically. And he was running out of the points anyway, so no point. He was moving backwards and he was P11 at the time. Maybe he pushed too hard on the tyres trying to keep up with Lewis. Maybe that's what ultimately resulted in his downfall relative to Lewis before the retirement anyway. Oil temp, that's it, yeah. Maybe. I mean, 32% is a pretty resounding vote, to be fair. Hamilton, 17. Obviously, that Mercedes car was just not up to the races yesterday. Leclerc, 12. I mean, that's a Ferrari L, isn't it? Magnussen, 10%. He did cause that accident, but also it's 3 wide, so I can't really blame him too much. It's one of them, everyone's so close together. Maybe should he be assuming there's someone on the outside of Nico Hulkenberg? when he's deciding to drive across. Maybe. Yeah, Alex just kind of wrong place, wrong time. But those things happen, really. Dan, you broke your arm yesterday. Mate, how'd you manage that? All right, well, everyone give some love to Daniel in the chat, all right? He broke his arm yesterday. Shocker. Shocker. So they're your bangers and clanger drive-wise. But what about team? I mean, it's Aston Martin, isn't it? I've given it to Aston Martin. You've given it to Aston Martin. 81% of you gave it to Aston Martin. 27% Ferrari. 27... No. I must have got that wrong. There's no way 27% of you gave... No. I've definitely got this wrong. It's yet another Lomo moment. Yeah, the graphics wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, for God's sake. I'm not on my job today, am I? I'm not on my job today. Oh, this is going to be really awkward to like export as well, right? So, 81% gave it to Aston Martin. 12.3%, to be precise, gave it to Red Bull. And then 3% of you gave it to AlphaTauri, which is a shout, actually, because, again, they were definitely both on pace for points. And then 2% of you gave it to McLaren. Lomo's in chat, please. Please drop a Lomo in chat, please, everyone. Thank you. I probably cocked up I haven't cocked up the last one. Definitely not. I know that, but I just forgot to update the. Anyway, Aston Martin. What's the opposite? You know, we've got obviously the slander name for Aston Martin is Aston Fartin. Does Minton do your grab? No, he'd do a better job, Seamus. He'd do a better job. What's the prop name for Aston Martin, right? The Lomo merch. Imagine. Lomo merch. Fasten Martin. Obviously, I say fast because of where I'm from. Claston or Claston. Yeah, because I have to kind of pronounce it like Aston, don't I? So Claston Martin, Fasten Martin. It's not awful, Martin. It's a great day. Astonishing Martin. Gaston Martin. Yeah, I think Fantastic Martin. Yeah, no, there's some good one. Aston Sig Martin. Look, they were good. None of us saw it coming. Hopefully they understand why. Because the more teams up there fighting Red Bull next year, hopefully, which still seems a way off, but who knows, right? Aston Fasting. There you go. There's some good prop names for Aston Martin. They deserve it. Because it's been a minute. It's been a minute of struggle and pain for the green people at Aston Martin. And then finally, clanger team. It's Mercedes. You also said Mercedes. 64% of the vote. 26% Alfa Romeo. Probably they both retired. So Alfa Romeo was technically the clangingest clanger, but Mercedes. Mercedes. Oh, thank you, Charmander, for gifting Maximilian a membership. Very kind of you. £2 a month game. Yeah, Alfa aren't surprising, and they were running out of the points anyway. Mercedes. Their car was set up like Lando's car was set up at Spa, but they had no corner performance. That's the thing. Lando was able to save that because he was so quick through the corners. So his one lap pace was good. So when he was in clean air, he was all right. Mercedes was slow everywhere. So, yeah. They can't set up a car when they've only got one practice session, which is a big L. There is no L in Mercedes, but there should be. Come on, what's slander name for Mercedes? 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 That's a lot. New Mercedes class just drops, the L class. The L class Mercedes. I like that default, actually. I like that. The Mercedes L class. The Mercedes L class. Mercedes is quite good. Mercedes, I think they were a bit lower than mid yesterday, though. Still got points in both races. I mean, technically, Andrew, yes, but I mean, if Red Bull got, 1 point in the sprint, 1 point in the race, it wouldn't be an achievement, would it? Mercedes L class. Yeah, I think we're gonna take that. Right. Hang on. I wanna who said it? Who came up with it? Hang on, let me find you in chat. Who said it first? Mercedes L class. Where is it? Where is it? Where the Mercedes. Yeah, Defon. Shout out Defon. DFON. Give Defon some love. Mercedes L class. Let's make it a thing. All right. Well done, Defon. Thank you, guys. 64% of you agreed, though. Man, look, let's get into the full debrief, team by team, starting with Alfa Romeo. Back again to their finest awfulness. Oh, this team, man. Jesus Christ. So, yeah. Next, AlphaTauri. Tsunoda did make a couple of mistakes in race. Ricciardo was very quick race pace-wise. That rule stinks, doesn't it? The fact that Ricciardo and Piastri had to start from the pit lane and then they were a whole lap down. They put them a lap down. Like, come on, man. Come on, FIA. That was a stinky choice. Especially as they both copped the damage through no fault of their own as well. They were just well unlucky. And then they just put a lap down for no reason. They fixed the car, did the outlap, and then they just had to come into the pits. And I was like, okay, all right, if you want to make them do a pit lane restart, fine. All right, make them start from the back. They've had to change rear wings and do significant changes to the car outside of part firme stuff. Like, all right, cool. Let them start from the pit lane, fine. Don't put them a lap down. You just ruined any opportunity for Ricciardo to have a good race through the field, or same for Piastri as well. It would have been harder for Piastri because he still seemed to have damage to parts of the... what was it? And Ted was talking about it post-race. Part of the car was still damaged. That they couldn't fully fix everything. But Ricciardo was flying. It's just, I don't know. Stinky decision, but bodes well for AlphaTauri. I like to think that Ricciardo... I mean, he put the third quickest lap of the race in as well, behind Lando and Max. I like to think that as much as the result wasn't great, this was a very good drive from Ricciardo given the situation. So that was that was a stinky choice. There was a safety car lap they didn't do, so at least it's not completely unreasonable. Well, that obviously must have been why, like to the letter of the law. But it's one of them, innit? It's just like following it to the letter of the law with no like real advantage being, had, right? If anything, you could argue, well, all right, if they didn't do the lap behind the safety car, then they're carrying a bit more fuel, like a bit too much fuel, more fuel than they need. Like, I don't know. It's one of them, innit? It's I get there's rules that need to be there, but in an instance like this, it just kind of robbed of an opportunity, right? For no real reason. It's the FIA's fault for not doing the red flag straight away. Yeah, I mean, it did take that red flag was long as well, wasn't it? It was a long red flag. So you got to think, like, why did it take as long as, like, what extra information did they not have when they dropped the safety car that they did have when they dropped the red flag? Because you could see the tyre barrier was actually quite significantly. Even just that first shot where you can see Magnussen, and then obviously it pans to Albon. That tyre barrier is properly messed up. Was it 26 minutes? Damn. 26 minutes. But yeah, Ricciardo's, I mean, he was quicker than Yuki. He had better race pace than Yuki, but also Yuki, Daniel was in clean air like the whole race. So hard to know for sure where Yuki would have been in. But I reckon, look, I said this when Ricciardo jumped in the car. I expect Ricciardo to be a bit faster than Tsunoda. I think he should be. But yeah, that tyre caused absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. And look, 7 points to Williams. We're going to do the poll now. Right, we're going to reload the poll. Will 2 races to go? Will AlphaTauri catch Williams? Let me know. What do you think? Will they catch Williams? 2 to go, 7 points, no sprints. So obviously P6 is 8 points. P6 is 8 points. P7 is 6 points. P8 is 4 points. P9 is 2. P10 is 1. So, look, the AlphaTauris are quicker than the Williams right now, generally speaking. Maybe in Vegas, it's going to be very cold, lots of straight lines. Williams should be quick on paper in Vegas. But then also, Williams should have been slow in Zandvoort. And they weren't, with Alex anyway. Even with Logan, he was all right. So, I don't know. 67% of you thinking yes. And you know what? Like, if I had to put money on it now, and there's only 2 to go, and you've got to look at the 2 packages right now. AlphaTauri is clear. It's mad that they were, so bad for so long this year. But a driver like Ricciardo, with his experience and his tenacity as well, like 66% of you are saying yes, 34% of you are saying no. I would have to put money on AlphaTauri right now. I would. You got 2 drivers as well up there as well scoring points. I mean, Yuki's been doing the heavy lifting points-wise, really. It's 13 this season. And obviously Daniel's not been in the car for that long. But Yuki's still, as much as he's not as reliable, I think, as Daniel Ricciardo, he's still getting the point. He still picked up... How many did he get this weekend? Was it 5 this weekend Yuki got? Can't even remember. You got... my head's gone. My head's scrambled. Yeah, it was 5. Okay, cool. Thank you, Herbert, for confirming my suspicions. It's correct. Right. Alpine. Yeah, like... They were quicker than the Mercedes in the race. Obviously, particularly in the hands of Gasly. Ocon did do a 3-stop, which obviously didn't help his pursuit for points. And Gasly, very, very good race. Very good race. Very good race from Pierre Gasly. Yeah, you know what? Like, Ocon needs to step this up because Gasly's starting to take a bit of command in this team. It's 12-8 head-to-head in qualifying in favour of Gasly. And, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of what could have been moments. And, Ocon has struggled more with reliability. He has had 3 technical reliability DNFs this year. Gasly's not had any. I think Ocon's had 7 DNFs overall. Gasly's had Gasly still had 4 or 5, I think. But Gasly has definitely been the better driver of the 2 this year. And I think in these last few races, he's really started to... if anything, it's more Ocon just kind of letting himself down a bit. Which is, 7 DNFs. He's had way more than anyone else. So karma for last year. Yeah, well, maybe. Ocon got Fernando's car from last year. Pierre got Ocon's car from this year. And from last year as well. So, yeah. Look, they're just kind of in nowhere, aren't they? They're just in no man's land. Alpine. Just test the car. Try and be less mid next year. Because I'd love to see Alpine at the front. I'd love to see Gasly and Ocon with a chance in a top car. But yeah, if McLaren can do it, what's Alpine's excuse? If Aston Martin can do it, what's Alpine's excuse? You know, Alpine were clear of both of them last year. You know, it's just because I really like the team. They're one of my more favoured teams, the Enstone based team. I like the history. I love the old Renault that Alonso was in. That's one of my favourite F1 cars of all time. The old Benetton. You know what I mean? The old Lotus with Kimi and Grosjean at the wheel, man. It's good. It's fun. I like the team, but yeah, maybe it is the engine. Renault engines, eh? Red Bull know how to get burnt by Renault engines, and now they're just burning themselves. But there you go. Not much more to say on them. But well done, Pierre Gasly. Well done, Pierre Gasly. Great drive from the boy from Rouen. Yeah, it's from Rouen, isn't it? And Esteban's from Evro. Aston Martin. Who saw that coming, eh? Why do we think, chat? Why do we think Aston turned this around? What's the prevailing thought as to why this was such a good weekend for Aston Martin? Because from my understanding, yeah. So we've talked about this a lot this year, right? Were Aston Martin's upgrades just kind of side grades? Were they downgrades? Or were they still upgrades, but everyone else was upgrading quicker? And reverting to type has paid dividends here. So they've gone to an older spec. They made a good choice in qualifying. But still, for Fernando to finish where he did, you know, even just with a normal Q3 and then being like P8, P9, they would have still made steps forward. So yeah, exactly. Like, this confirms that actually their upgrades actually made the car worse, because they've reverted back to type and all of a sudden they're cooking. It was a good result, but the fact that that is the case is a howler. I'm not going to lie. Like, they've just confirmed to the world that these upgrades that they've been working on, and, you know, they've had them, well, I mean, what spec did they revert to? Because obviously Canada, they bought upgrades in Canada, didn't they? And they still had a good race in Canada. But then after that, it started to slip. It was after Canada where it started to slip. And it's like, that's concerning. That is like, again, especially given what McLaren have done. You know, since Lando got his upgrade in Austin, he's finished on the podium 9 times, including sprints. 2 sprint podiums, 7 regular podiums. 6 times P2 on the regular podium, 1 time P2 on the sprint podium. Which, yeah, they clearly don't understand the car. Which is, yeah, howler is bad. Howler is a bad thing. There's another bit of British slang for you. If you've had a howler, you've had a stinker, you've had a clanger. It's basically another word for clanger, right? Howler. Go see, like, I'm spreading the doctrine of I don't know even what you call that, just British slang. Yeah, look, this is a good result in isolation for Aston Martin, but this does highlight that they've spent a lot of time doing stuff that hasn't actually taken performance off the car. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not getting too excited about this for that reason, I guess, right? Because they have to make a step forward at some point. Because, yeah, with this old spec, they were third quickest car yesterday. But they have to upgrade at some point and put all that time into those upgrades. And look, maybe, you know, you learn most from your mistakes, right? And hopefully Aston Martin, because clearly whatever upgrade they brought in Austin, particularly, and just the upgrades generally they brought this season, have been mistakes. So it's like, I hope they can learn from them. I really do, because otherwise there is no trajectory. You can't just stick with this car forever, because it will just go backwards eventually. But yeah, it's concerning, but kind of good in the moment. A bit of both. Hard to say. And yeah, Lance, you know what? Credit to Lance. Credit to Lance. He's got a good performance in him. He does. We just don't see it anywhere near often enough. We just do not see it anywhere near often enough. And yeah, look, I mean, considering the stick he's been getting recently, and rightly so, a lot of it, you know, I think that I just don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea where this car's going to be next year. I would say I'm even more unsure about Aston Martin than I am Mercedes. So, where do we think, chat? Where Aston Martin going to finish next season in the constructors? Because I ain't got a Scooby. I ain't got a Scooby-Doo. Anyway, next. 3, 4, 5 behind Alpine. 7, 5, 3, 5. Yeah, you lot ain't got a clue either. Ferrari. So it was some kind of, I think, electronic issue that then caused the hydraulics to cut out. So his power steering went. That's my understanding, right? Of Charles' issue from P2. Great job in qualifying, but how can I be so unlucky? Because you race for Ferrari, my friend. Charles asked the question, and that kind of is the answer, as far as I'm concerned. Sainz's pace was, I mean, we didn't really see Sainz all race. He just kind of sat there in, P7 in the end. And I can't imagine Charles would have done much better. I think he would have finished, he would have finished behind Alonso. He would have finished behind Perez. Probably would have finished behind Stroll. Probably. Maybe not, but I think P5 is probably the best he could have done. More likely P6 if he'd have stayed in that race. Ferrari, there seems to only be one team that actually understands their car as much as Red Bull, or at least close to Red Bull. Because Ferrari, hit and miss. Who knows? Every weekend. Mercedes, hit and miss every weekend. Aston Martin have been very miss recently and then just hit when they revert to type. Crazy. McLaren with Norris are the only consistent, have been anywhere near consistency of Red Bull as of late, which is bodes well for them for next year, but does not bode well for a multi-team fight at the front. It bodes well for McLaren to be, it wouldn't shock me if McLaren almost fit that Red Bull position where Red Bull were like 2018, where they're like, they can't challenge Mercedes at the front, but also they're clear of the rest. That seems to be the trajectory McLaren are on right now. I think next year's too much to expect them to fight for a championship. They can win races next year, I think, McLaren, but to fight for a championship, that consistency, Red Bull still, whew, damn. But yeah, Ferrari, nothing to say beyond what I've already said. Stink. Haas, stink. Magnussen squeezed his teammate into Albon 3 wide and then ended up getting wiped out because of that. He was kind of the master of his own downfall. Again, I can't really blame him too much for it because, it's 3 wide. Like, these cars only have so much visibility. But he was the one responsible, and the Haas were just... They tried the mediums in the sprint, didn't they? Because they were so scared of their softs falling off, and they were just nowhere. Hulkenberg, nowhere. Behind Sargent, comfortably behind Sargent in the end as well. Yeah, Magnussen's having a bit of a stink this year, innit? And Haas are just terrible. And apparently Haas have been saying that, I saw a couple of reports suggesting that Haas don't really know where they're going with next year's car either. So that's great. That's great. Another year of Haas being trash. Yeah. Not so much McLaren though. Oh, Lando. Oh, Lando. 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 He gave us that little bit of hope, didn't he? That there was going to be some kind of fight. We got it a little bit. Max, you know, he said, didn't he, after the sprint, he was like the cookie to like, drag Lando along. Yeah, look, Lando did an unreal job. Great start as well. Great start, really good start. Obviously, without Leclerc there was a lot of space for Lando to drive into, but he got the jump on Alonso and Stroll. Really good start, and yeah, closed it out. I mean, qualifying was a bit of a shame, but obviously there was a lot of factors that went into why Lando qualified where he did, but came out P2 at the end of the day. Gave it as good a go as he could have. Again, 8 seconds or so behind Max after a full 71 lap race. That should give McLaren some confidence that they're certainly in the right direction, and Still has talked about a lot more upgrades to come. Again, look, McLaren have upgraded their car clearly. They've made their car quicker. So their upgrades are upgrades. Let's hope from a championship point of view they continue to upgrade the car and not just side grade it. And yeah, Piastri, super unlucky to cop the damage he did. But there was extra damage for Piastri as well. He had floor damage, which they were able to repair, but there was some other damage, and obviously rear wing, but then there was some other damage that they couldn't repair. So yeah, it was just a bit of a glorified testing session for Oscar. Just try and make the most of the mileage that you can get at the end of the year. There's not really anything to fight for, is there? At least in that race, there wasn't for Oscar. Just hope for a safety car. But again, that he got kind of stiffed by the same rule that Ricciardo got stiffed by, which was a bit of a shame in the end. But yeah, at least Lando, yeah, kind of had to make Max work for this one, Lily. Think about it at least, you know. But he's driving the absolute skin off that car, isn't he? Lando is... Ooh, Aussies racing in their own time zone. I like that. I like that, Charmander. And yeah, another P2 to add to his growing list of P2s. His win will come. It is only a matter of time. Same can't be said for Mercedes. God, it does feel like... yes, it's one race. I guess they were good in Mexico. But that's bad. It's like when they do badly, Mercedes, Toto and Lewis in particular are very down. The Mercedes L class is oh dear. It's inexcusable, I think Toto called this. I mean, look, it's words. He said this before. Like, you just gotta put the work in. You just got to put the work in, Mercedes. You stuck with a flawed concept for too long. New chassis next year. Sort out your pit stops, man. Like, come on. Car doesn't deserve a win. It's just a team like Mercedes as well, right? This fall from grace, right, has been pretty. Again, yes, Lewis is P3 in the Drivers' Championship, right? But that car's on such a knife edge. It always has been. They get it right, they're great. But when they get it wrong, they get it wrong. They get it wrong. And they got it wrong here. Strategy's poor. Pit stops are poor. Drivers are squabbling. There's no communication there. There just isn't. Yeah, it's a frustrating team to watch. It's a frustrating team. I mean, they literally did a Ferrari. And when George asked, like, what are we doing? They were like, we are discussing. We are discussing. That's a Ferrari. We are checking. We are checking. We are discussing. That is the English version. That is the British version of we are checking. Mercedes dropped a Ferrari. They caught with the Ferrari virus. They did. Honestly, Mercedes, not good enough. Not good enough. Going to do a full debrief tomorrow on the Tommo YouTube channel. So be ready tomorrow because we're going to get into it. We are going to get into it. As for Red Bull, though, you know what? Perez, what do we make of Perez's race, actually? Obviously, Verstappen, pole win, held off Lando when he needed to, got the race win. 17 this year. It goes without saying. He's having a phenomenal season, one of the greatest seasons of all time. He's doing an incredible job with an incredible race team, with an incredible car, and an incredible driver at the wheel. It's just ticking all the boxes. But what we're saying about Perez, I think that obviously he recovered from P9. He was very unlucky in qualifying because his lap was on for at least a top 3, I think. His lap was very good up to that point, but Piastri went wide, then brought the yellow flag, so then Checo had to slow down, and he only got P9 in the end. Good start from Perez as well. Did what he needed to do, turn the slump around. Quite good this weekend. Should have been third minimum. P3, P4 decent from Perez. Decent race. Average race. Look, again, I think relative to his recent form, this was definitely a better race. Again, look, Mexico qualifying was decent, and then obviously he just went full send at the start and messed it up. But Alonso, Perez really should have got P3, shouldn't he? Like, he was obviously the quicker car to get the move done, and then Fernando to get you back as well. And look, Perez, it takes 2 to tango. Alonso and Checo demonstrated great racecraft, the two of them. Checo should have got P3. He should have got P3. And he was 30 plus seconds off his teammate. These are not untruths. I think that it was an all right drive. It was an all right drive, but to finish behind Fernando, if Checo had pipped Fernando, like, should he be pipping the Aston Martin at the end? When Leclerc started ahead of him, retired. You got to think Ricciardo would have been up there. Obviously, he retired, but he was starting at the back. So, I don't know. It was all right, I suppose. It was all right. But I can't. It would be disingenuous to give too much plaudits for what was, relative to Max, a big gap. Yeah, I think I've kind of summarised my thoughts on Checo's race there. But okay. If he can get podiums last couple of races, he's giving himself a good chance to that seat next year. Thank you, Leslie, for the $11.99. Thank you very much, Leslie. Very kind of you. I'll keep advocating that Perez, when he's doing well, he's getting everything out of that Red Bull. Max is just Max, and I feel like he deserves more credit for it. Same with Norris at McLaren. Perez, when he's doing well, he's getting everything out of that Red Bull. You could say that at the start of the year. Because the thing is, at the start of the year, not only was he won 2 of the first 4 races. Obviously, yes, Max at Saudi had to take that. He had that issue, didn't he, in qualifying? So it's only really Baku where Checo has outpaced and beaten Max this season and stayed ahead. And thank you, Seamus, for gifting 5 memberships. Go on. Very kind of you. But apart from Baku, outside of Baku and Saudi, those 2 wins, and again, those 2 P2s in the first 4 races, Checo wasn't just close to Max, he was clear of everyone else. But again, McLaren weren't in the conversation, Ferrari, Mercedes, Aston Martin, obviously Alonso was up there in the Aston. I don't know. I think if Checo could continue that level of performance relative to the whole field, not just to Max, but relative to everyone, just keep picking up podiums. I mean, the lack of podiums this year is so stark. It's crazy. It is so stark. Yeah, exactly. You got when you're a member, you got green name, and you don't have the chat timer as well. Buzzing. Thank you, Seamus. Very kind of you. Very kind of you indeed. But yeah, and then finally Williams. I don't know why we've ended on Williams because there's nothing ready to say because Alex retired straight away. Logan was outside the points, and in the sprint it was pretty rubbish as well. So yeah, not much more to say on that. I think we're about done, everyone. Is there anything else to touch on? Logie points would have been nice, but meh. I think Logan will keep the seat. I do think Logan will keep the seat. Do you think? Yeah, I guess we'll do another. Let's do another Checo Ricciardo poll. Who's getting the 2024 Red Bull seats? Checo Ricciardo. Keep a running tally of this as we go through the last two races. TV direction. Oh, the MGK interview. Oh, God. Who's telling Martin to talk to him? Like, it's just awful. It's so bad. And I mean, MGK was just being an absolute knobhead. Exactly as you said it, Bailey. Knob. Oh God, it's just painful at times. This sport is just a bit of a joke sometimes. Right, 65% of you are thinking Checo currently. 35% of you are thinking Ricciardo. Oh, did anyone else get a yawn there? No, it's a bit psychosomatic. Who is MGK? I wouldn't worry. Girl, weeb. I would not worry. I would not bother looking that up. It was just painful. Yeah, 65%. So most of you still think Checo keeps the seat. Again, look, I think a lot of it is going to be down to those sponsors. You know, those sponsors that Checo brings to the team that are prominent on that car as well. That come via Checo into that team. You know, it's that's going to be pivotal in that decision because Daniel just doesn't have that support from a commercial point of view. He's a very, you could argue Daniel's the more popular driver around the world, almost certainly, I think. Obviously, Checo's got an absolute, that Latin American fan base. He's all over it, but I think that Daniel brings eyeballs for sure. Checo brings direct money into the team's pocket. So, kind of which way you want to go there. Hard to say. I've been saying Daniel since he got back into that Red Bull family, and I'm still going to say Daniel. I think Daniel had a very good race yesterday in terms of pace. That can't be ignored, and Red Bull won't be ignoring that either. But also, it's important that if Red Bull were going to say bye-bye to Checo and goodbye to all of that sponsor money, that they're not just getting a like for like, and they are actually getting they're improving their situation. That's important. Does Red Bull need eyeballs? Oh, the more eyeballs, the better, Salmon. The more eyeballs, the better. The more Daniel can represent Red Bull and get Red Bull into the hearts and minds and souls of people around the world, the better. Red Bull, big company, Red Bull. They're going to be happy with that. But Checo shifts a lot of merch. So, yeah. And again, it's like Red Bull GmbH don't need the money, but Red Bull Racing, they want to operate at a profit. They don't want to, they want to be an entity that, Red Bull, big Red Bull can just, make money on, basically. You don't want to be a drain. It's like, that's why I worry about Twitch with Amazon, because Twitch is a drain. Twitch doesn't make money for Amazon. So how much longer do Amazon keep funding that? Because one day they might not want to lose money anymore. TV direction. It's just banging the old same drum in it. I've not got much more to say on the TV direction. Sprints this year. you know what? They've been talking about changes. So the suggested changes I've seen is that they're going to move. So sprint quali will be Friday evening or Friday afternoon instead of normal quali. And then the sprint race will be Saturday morning. So then the sprint's all done by the end of Saturday morning. And then they'll have normal quali Saturday afternoon. And then the race Sunday. Which I think was I think would be better. Oh, and also more importantly, opening up Parc Fermé after the sprint race. I think that's a no-brainer. Because then it makes the sprints less of a spoiler potentially, because you can actually change the setup of your car. And as we've seen many a time this year, be that Singapore Red Bull, be that Mercedes in Interlagos, setup can make or break your weekend completely. I mean, Mercedes were slower than Alpine this weekend. They were the second quickest car last weekend. So, yeah, I think Parc Fermé has a big role to play in improving the sprint, in my opinion. Because then it's less of a spoiler. Thank you, Benji, for the £2 as well. Decent race. Man U win. West Ham lose. Nice. Thank you for that, Benji. Very kind of you. Very kind, Benji. Very kind. I didn't even really celebrate us beating Arsenal because I was just like, this is just a cup game. We're just going to... I'm so anxious about us just surviving in the Premier League that that's my number one focus, because I just know what we're like. Backhanded quid. I know, right? Thank you again, Leslie, by the way, for the $5.99. Proposal, Friday, FP1 and 2, Saturday, race, quali, and reverse grid sprint, Sunday, race. FP1 and 2, Saturday, race, quali, and reverse race, grid sprint, Sunday, race. I don't... See, I'm not against the whole idea of less practice, because I do think that they have too much practice. I think the teams have too much practice, for sure, like at any given weekend. Maybe more... I think testing is obviously different to practice, because with practice you're setting up for a specific track. I think testing, obviously start of season testing around Bahrain, that's a bit of a different conversation. But yeah, I think the Parc Fermé moving is the main thing for me. I mean, you could just shorten the weekends entirely. Just turn up on a Friday, Saturday morning FP1, Saturday afternoon qualifying, Sunday race, and then just have more races. That's what Craig Slater suggested. But obviously then the tracks are getting... the tracks aren't going to have the same... The tracks aren't going to be up for that, because they're losing Fridays in terms of ticket sales and all that. So that'd be a long shot. Look, we'll see with the sprints. For me, it's about making the best of it, because they're not going to get rid of the sprints. And fundamentally, as much as for me personally, I'll stick the practice on in the background on a Friday. I'll watch it passively. Quali Saturdays, it's kind of what I'm used to. But I don't mind change, as long as it, I think, makes the product more entertaining, more exciting, more interesting to watch. We only have... We say 24 races is a lot, right? Which it is relative to Red Bull. But relative to other sports, it's not a lot at all. That's 24 weekends all year. 24 events all year. That's it. So it's like, if we can squeeze more racing out of each Grand Prix, but it needs to be good. It needs to add to the show. And I think the sprints, as they are right now, do not. Even though the sprint the sprint Saturday was better than the race, I thought. I think there's still work to be done. But I'm confident it will get better. It will never appease everyone, of course, because everyone's got an opinion, everyone's entitled to one. But yeah, logistically, it would be a bit of a nightmare, for sure. That's a low bar, to be fair. Right, cool. Let's wrap this up. I'm gonna go grab Minton one more time for all you YouTube viewers. Come on, buddy. I know you're very tired because you sleep all the time. He was on the last lap with us yesterday, actually, weren't you? You were very good. He was very settled. Look at his look. He looks like he's smiling. Look at him. He's so sleepy. Well, thank you everyone for joining me for the post-race Chinwag for the 2023 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Pleasure as always. And new videos should be out tomorrow. I'm going to crack on with that now. And yeah, it's been fun. Don't forget to check out this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, which I will be uploading straight afterwards. And like the stream if you're here on YouTube. 5 stars on audio only. And yeah, keep an eye on your subscription boxes, your YouTube homepages tomorrow for a new Tommo upload. Minton May feature. But look how tired he is. Look at how sleepy he is. Right. Cheers, everyone. Stay safe, be well, be happy. Thank you to all the super chatters as well. Very kind. Leslie, Benji, Seamus as well for the donos. Pit Lane Pulse, Rohith. Matthew, big up. You're too kind, mate, with a 5 AUD, Aussie dollars. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Hopefully Vegas is good. We'll see. Bye, everyone. Bye.